What were some of the worst experiences you have had while working in the fast food industry? Story 1. Not fast food, but while I was working at a chain grocery store, a middle-aged woman was pushing her cart through the parking lot when she lost control of it going downhill. It slammed into someone's car whilst they were in it. She tried to blame me, who had been a few feet away from her, for pushing her cart full of groceries into the car. Luckily, the person saw through her blaming it on me and proceeded to ask her again if the cart full of groceries was hers. When she repeated it wasn't, he shrugged and said, "Guess it's no one's," then proceeded to load all of the groceries from her cart and put it in his car before leaving. All while, she just had to stand there and say nothing. If that car owner was an idiot though, it would have turned out real different for me. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. I don't know if any of you remember the grilled onion cheddar burger that McDonald's used to serve, but we used to keep the grilled onions in a heated tray in the grill area. One of the guys I used to work with at McDonald's came in one day all upset. He used to chew tobacco while working, which was gross enough as it is. Well, he got caught, on camera, spitting his chew into the grilled onion tray. I think he got away with doing that almost his whole shift until someone saw the tape in the manager's office. He was fired on the spot. I'm not sure what they did about the burgers that went out served like that, though. Story 3. I had a very short stint working at the Golden Arches. The soda machine was literally never cleaned. On my first closing shift, I went to take the nozzles off the soda machine, and there was mold literally caked around the inside of each nozzle. The manager told me that the constant stream of soda kept the machine clean, so it wasn't necessary to remove the nozzles. BS. I can't drink soda from McDonald's or any other fast food place anymore. Story 4. A few months ago, I went to my local Chipotle and got a fountain drink. I've worked fast food service before and knew the horrors of fountain drink nozzles. But I know people who work at this particular Chipotle and know that they take care of their crap. So anyway, they had my favorite, Pib Extra. And when I went to fill my cup, I looked away at something when I felt soda all over my hand and noticed that there was no nozzle on the Pib. Oh well, I thought they must be cleaning it, so I went for a Coke. I took my food home and ate it. When I finished my drink, it sounded like there was an ice cube in there, but I never got ice. I opened up my cup and saw the Pib nozzle had fallen into my cup and I hadn't noticed. Thankfully, it was clean AF, but still. Story 5. I managed a breakfast joint for a while, beginning a few months after it originally opened. We have a very large oven where we bake our bagels, and one day after the bagels had been baked for the day, the baker left the door open to cool. While I was up front, the restaurant and I could hear a deafening, "Holy crap!" from the back where the oven was. I walk back laughing, expecting to see a proofing rack knocked over or some other stupid mistake. Instead, I'm hit with a geyser of jet black water from the sprinkler system above the oven. Well, shouting resumed as we tried to cover what we could while waiting for the fire department to arrive. FD arrived and spent the next 2.5 hours looking for the shutoff switch for our sprinkler. Turns out the switch had been inadvertently covered/obstructed during the store's construction. I got to stay late that day and help clean every ounce of the black, smelly water from our appliances and slicers. 3-ish hours of pressurized water in the kitchen. You know, that's probably the case with most sprinkler systems, because how often are those actually checked out? On the inside, I mean. I'd be willing to bet that while it might help a fire, it's still gonna be really gross. Story 6. Worked at a Burger King a while back that stayed open till 2 a.m. One manager was actually a reasonable person and was an older lady that clearly paid her dues to the company. At my store, we only had 2 closers, so from about 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. it was just me and a manager. The night I put my 2 weeks in, she is just grumpy and teary-eyed looking at her phone, and she's not usually the manager who does that. Her oldest was going into a complicated premature labor and nobody could help her. No area manager wanted to come out that late. Corporate didn't care because that was part of the job. She was crying all night until we closed. Busted out of there 10 minutes after closing time. We broke so many rules. Screw corporate people who think that you have to take time away from your children for crappy burgers. Story 7. I worked at McDonald's part-time while I was in college. One day I was working the drive-thru and this guy ordered a lot of drinks. One of them was low on soda syrup, but instead of just telling me about it like a rational person so I could give him a replacement drink, he threw the extra large drink at me. Of course the lid came off and I was soaking wet. The manager, who was actually pretty good as far as fast food managers go, saw this happen. He took off running into the parking lot, flagged down the driver before he could leave, and told him to never come back. Then he came in, found me a dry uniform shirt, and let me have a few minutes on the clock to sit in the break room and calm down. That is a W manager right there. That's all I have to say. Story 8. I was working the drive-thru and gave the lady her food. Not 15 feet down the road from the window is a trash can and a sign that says, "Please do not litter." You can probably guess what happened next. She throws her wrapper right in front of me, and as she drives off, I say, "Are you kidding me?" Next thing I know, I hear a screech of tires and hear a car door slam. She walks back to the window and starts to curse me out. She says, "What the frick did you just say? You throw your crap on the ground too, don't BS me." I just point to the sign and say, "No, I throw my trash in the trash can like a normal human being. Have a nice frickin' day." And shut and lock the window. Luckily, my manager was pretty chill and didn't care, and I just went about the rest of my day. Story 9. I used to work in a bakery and a grocery store. I was the cake decorator, and the cakes were in containers and in a cooler that customers could just take and go to pay. 2 kids, 6 and 8-ish years old, ran over and started throwing cakes on the ground, like happy birthday to the ground style. They were on their 6th cake before I could reach them and took the cakes in their hands. Their mom came over, sighed, and just turned the kids around and started to the produce section like nothing happened. No apology, no acknowledgement, no words to the kids about the hundreds of dollars they just cost us and my time. So either the mom was just super fed up that day, or it really sounds like that the mom's part of the problem here. If you don't parent your kids, they're gonna be little monsters. I don't know what you expect. Story 10. Was 15 and working for the Golden Arches in a 2-story city location. An elderly lady came in to use the upstairs toilet, and when she came back down, she had crap caked all over her hands, which she dragged down the banister she used to steady herself on down the stairs. She then went and sat at a table for a moment before leaving. She clearly had dementia, although I didn't recognize it at the time. I was sent to the bathroom to investigate the damages, and it was a literal crap show. I reported back to my manager, who told me I had to clean it all up. No thanks, I quit on the spot. I was not cleaning up crap for $4.85 an hour. Story 11. Not fast food, but at a restaurant. I was the waiter for a nice older couple, and they ordered salads as an appetizer before their meal. After a couple of minutes, the man calls me over and shows me the tip of a broken drill bit he bit into from his salad. Expecting a lawsuit, my heart skipped a beat and went into adrenaline mode as I quickly got the manager. Tom came over white-faced and apologized profusely while offering a few gift cards and comping free their meal. Shockingly, the couple didn't threaten or get irate. Found out later that Tom had been drilling near the prep line in the kitchen earlier in the day to fix something, and he saw the drill bit snap but couldn't find the tip. The couple even tipped me as well. You dodged a bullet, Tom. Story 12. Someone said, "Give me some of those fresh-baked cookies, I can smell you baking them." When, first of all, we just reheat frozen ones. And secondly, we just put one in the microwave for a guest who asked us to. When we told him this, he started to yell and then walked behind the counter to go check. I called my manager and he started to push her around to go check, screaming, "I want my fresh cookies." He then tried to hit on one of our team members in the back, then took off his shirt and screamed when she asked him to go away. We had to escort him out after calling the police. Story 13. I worked night shift at a Krispy Kreme. It was always just me and the manager. She never helped. She would just go into the office to do paperwork and leave me alone for 8 hours to make everything. Because I knew she'd leave me alone, I'd take the trash out multiple times a night for a smoke session. Well, one night I come back in from my smoke sesh and notice the conveyor for the OG glazed is starting to rattle pretty badly. There are several things you needed to turn off prior to stopping the conveyor. Glaze fountain, heating elements, dough ejector thingy, so I turned all of those off, but for some reason the conveyor is in a weird dieseling state, where it continues to run but is disconnected from power. I start to panic. The conveyor keeps going and continues to get louder and louder. I start pounding on the manager's office door, but she won't answer. Crap's starting to fall apart, and my baked butt can't handle this. I finally shoulder charge her office door down, screaming, "What the heck, dude? I need help." But she isn't in there. Look on her security screens. Her car isn't even in the parking lot. Once I realized that jerk was gone, the conveyor finally went. The motor took out one end of the conveyor line and gallons of 100% pork lard fryer oil covered the floor of the entire kitchen. I called the off-duty manager, told him what just happened, and said, "Screw this, I'm done," and just left. Story 14. I worked at a Cane's kitchen around graduation season. He had massive catering orders, like 600 chicken fingers, 500 pieces of toast, 250 coleslaws. Multiple orders like this on the same day, while also being our busiest day of the week. We were going nuts. Even the owner was there to help. Of course, this is the day corporate decides to make a surprise visit. The owner got reamed, even though we were consistently scoring as one of the top locations on a regular day. So he reamed the manager, who then reamed us. So we're already stressed out and tired, and now we're being shouted at by irate customers, the owner, and our manager. I'm surprised we didn't all quit that day. Story 15. I had a rough-looking guy in a beat-up truck try to use 1-year-old coupons. I refused to take them. That was a mistake. He held up the drive-thru and screamed at me, including, "Smarten up, son, or you're going nowhere in life." Made me feel like crap, until I realized that someone like that who was screaming those things at a 15-year-old running the drive-thru didn't go anywhere in life either. Projection. It's always projection. Story 16. At McDonald's, of course. I was a first assistant manager. We had a kid who was just promoted to shift manager. He was a very good employee and he knew his stuff. We had high hopes for him. His very first shift, 5 minutes in, he does a walkthrough of the dining room. He asks a girl who is 7 months pregnant to change a trash bag, and she tells him no, she can't do it. He walks to the back of the store, gets the trash masher, basically a mop handle with steel plates on the end to compact the trash, walks to the garbage can and mashes the trash. He then takes the trash masher and knocks the girl out with it, screaming, "I'm the frickin' boss and everyone better do what I tell them," and continued to yell at everyone about how she needs to be fired for insubordination and how no one else better test him. He was arrested in the store and was trying to argue with the police officers that he was in the right. The girl had a major concussion, but she and the baby ended up being okay. It's always the smallest bit of power that goes to people's heads, huh? Like, I can't even imagine what goes through someone's head that you're like, yeah, I can boss anyone around for any reason. And if they say no to my orders, then they're doing it wrong or something. I don't know. I don't have the manager brain, obviously. 7 months pregnant, though? Oh man, he could have gotten into some serious legal trouble for knocking her out if something happened to that baby. Story 17. I used to work at Sonic. On rainy days, especially when it was pouring, people would intentionally park across the lot, the spare spots that weren't covered by their famous awning, and make the car hops walk the food out there to them. We would be standing there outside their car window with the food on a tray, waiting for them to roll down their window. They'd take their sweet time getting their cash or cards out while we were getting drenched. All the while, there were plenty of open spots under the awning, closer to the restaurant and out of the rain. By the time they took their food from us, they would demand the meal for free since it was wet. Mind you, not wet enough to give back the food, just wet enough to demand a full refund while they shoved the offending fries in their mouth. Those people also never tipped. Also, we have people who would make us go back inside and replace their 44-ounce drink 4 and 5 times, even when you insisted it was the right drink. This ain't diet? Sir, I poured this drink myself. I can assure you that it's diet. I want you to go back in there and do it again, and I better not have to send you back a third time. Story 18. I used to work at a fast food chicken place. For anonymity reasons, I'd rather not say which one, but I'm sure most can guess. One night I was working with my coworker. We'll call him Andrew. Andrew was a big dude working in a small kitchen. Kind of cramped, hard for him to move around. That night he went into the chicken cooler and ended up slipping on some chicken grease. His foot flung forward and him backwards into the wall, but the wall had metal paneling on it. One of these panels was bent on the corner, so when he slipped, he subsequently sliced his back from the bottom of his back up to beyond his shoulder blade by landing on this bent corner. He screams out in pain. I run over and ask what's wrong since I didn't witness it. My back, dude, it hurts so freaking bad. I see blood staining the back of his shirt and scream to my manager to call an ambulance. I rush over and sit him up and told him I was going to take his shirt off so I can put pressure on the wound. When I lifted that shirt, holy crap. Imagine taking a hunk of meat and slicing it with one even slice using a katana. That's what it looked like. I kind of automatically went holy hell, and he asked if it was bad. I told him nah. At this point, my manager, instead of calling an ambulance, calls the district frickin' manager. And instead of the district manager yelling at him to call an ambulance, he instead wants an entire description of what's going on. My other manager and my store manager begin to argue about this, while I'm asking my other coworkers to find a first aid kit. My coworker finds one, and I swear on my life I'm not making this up. One small, partially used roll of gauze, a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and a set of third grader Band-Aids. That's it. That right there should have put the store completely out of business. I ask for some towels, anything I can use to put pressure on the wound. All they can bring me that was clean was some freaking paper towels. I didn't want them to stick to him, so I kinda had to hover over the wound with it, lightly tapping it in some places and putting pressure on others. I'm no medical expert, but I felt like it was better than doing nothing. 20 minutes goes by. During those 20 minutes, someone else eventually called an ambulance and they came. Then they had trouble getting the stretcher into the frickin' place. We had to move around all sorts of crap. Finally, after about 45 minutes to an hour of this ordeal, he is on the stretcher and in the ambulance. If I recall correctly, he required 12 stitches and a few staples, but this was a few years ago, so I don't exactly remember. Unfortunately, he couldn't sue, or at least he didn't want to for a few reasons. 1, he said that since he wasn't wearing the proper shoes, it wouldn't have went anywhere in court. And 2, he was just too nice of a guy. Would rather get back to work than anything. Oh, and the real gross part is that all of the chicken should have been tossed. Only half of it was. Story 19. I worked for McDonald's in a mall when I was in high school, and the worst was Black Friday, 1987. The night before, I had slipped and fallen in my bedroom and cut open my eyebrow. It needed an ER trip and 7 stitches and left me looking like Frankenstein's monster. I tried to call in and was informed that I hadn't called early enough. They didn't have time to call someone to fill in on my scheduled shift. So I showed up for work with an oozing eyebrow, a splitting headache, and about 4 hours of sleep. It was also insanely busy, so I barely got to grab lunch. 20 minutes in line to order my food, cut from a 30-minute lunch break. Basic training for the Navy was less stressful. Story 20. I worked in a small Macca's during the Sydney Olympics. I was about 15 at the time. There was a series of big screens at Circular Quay showing live Olympic events. There was always large crowds down there. This store was around 500 meters or so away from my store, and because of the demand, we occasionally had to take things down there. Our store was closing and they were running out of buns at the busy store, so they sent me down with a big trolley of those buns, the pre-split ones. Easy, right? I get about 20 meters from the store and there's a giant crowd between me and the store. So I start asking people to move and most people are nice. Until this one guy rips open the bag of buns and starts throwing them up in the air and screaming out, "Free burgers! Free burgers!" The crowd moves towards me and some police/crowd control notice this and come over and tell everyone to back off, and have a few heated words with the free burger guy. They guide me through the crowd into the store awaiting the buns. I got grilled about arriving with one less tray of buns, but once I tell them the story, it's all good. Bonus story. Because that store was so busy, I picked up a shift after my normal shift that totaled 20 hours. I was the richest 15-year-old I knew at the time. The least realistic part about this story is that they were understanding that he was missing a bag of buns. I feel like working in fast food, there's like a 90% chance that he gets blamed for that anyway, but OP got off lucky. Story 21. Literally had a 17-year-old kid get unalived in my arms. I was 19 and working at KFC in a bit of a rough area. It was a quiet day shift, so there were only 3 staff and no customers in the store at the time. A young couple who looked pretty screwed up walked in and went straight to the bathrooms. After some time, the girl came out screaming for help. She said her boyfriend had gone into the bathroom to use the drugs and he wasn't responding and he was inside the locked men's room. My manager called an ambulance while I tried to get the door open. I couldn't kick it down like Chuck Norris, so I went and grabbed some tools and finally got it open. Found the kid, blue and cold on the floor. His pulse was faint. There was a syringe next to him. He had blood in his mouth, so I couldn't make mouth-to-mouth contact and started administering chest compressions. The whole time his girlfriend was screaming at me to save him. I feel like I could sense the moment he passed. The ambulance came within a few minutes, but there was nothing they could do. His mother came a few days later to apologize and thank us for trying to save him. There was some police questioning and plenty of nightmares. It has been about 17 years and I still think about it often. My man tried to save a life on minimum